I'd like to share with you some of the projects that I have directed on, which include documentary, drama, soapy, telenovela, and short films. The next clip I'm going to play for you is a trailer to my award-winning short film titled The Award Ceremony, which will be part of an international film festival, which will be online later in the year. I will share those details on my social media closer to the time. My social media at Mmabatho Montsho on Twitter and Montsho the Black on Instagram. You can also use those social media to talk about the masterclass that we'll be having today, since it is pre-recorded and we can't take your questions live and sort of back and forth. So we can continue the conversation. That side, I welcome it. Without further ado, here is the trailer to the award ceremony. Hopefully you will get to see it soon.
Hello?
Hello. So, Mmabatho.
Khale ke tsogile.
E jwang excitement?
E kgolo. Mama, o ska lebala ditlhako.
Nka se di lebale. Nka se di lebale ditlhako.
Okay.
So, uyazi ba? Umzukulwana wami so, uprincess. Ufumene wonga. Ufumene wonga esikolweni. Awuhola nje, ngizakubhadala yonke imali yakho.
Okay. Hey guys, you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm not very technically savvy, so just bear with me as we go along. So the topic that I've been asked to cover today is the actor-director relationship. And as a point of departure, I think it's important to state that the actor-director relationship is essentially a relationship of power within the journey of storytelling. The word director already tells you that somebody has to be directed. And in the same breath, the directed can make a choice to accept or undermine the direction. Speaking of undermining the direction, this relationship of power does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in a particular context. It exists in a particular social structure. To paraphrase Karl Marx, people tell stories, but they do not choose the conditions under which they tell those stories. I want to talk about what those different conditions are, those different social structures are, and how I experience them as a Black female director. What are some of these conditions that we're talking about? We're talking about access, we're talking about class, race, gender, ability. And already when we're talking about access and class, we're already talking about the privileged and the marginalized. My experience of the power dynamic between the actor and director is as a member of one of the most marginalized groups in society, and that is the Black woman. When I dream of being a director as a child, I think I'm going to step onto a set and it is my talent that's going to determine the relationship that I have with an actor. But experience showed me very quickly that at the end of the day, I am a Black female director, because that is how the set receives me, because that is how the world receives me. The structural conditions don't suddenly end at the door of the set. I embrace the title Black female director because when I do so, I can be in solidarity with other Black female directors in advocating for better working conditions for us, creating a space for us, and even redefining a space that is designed to reject us. A Black female director is always negotiating a struggle with power because you're not readily accepted as a figure of authority. Whether I like it or not, I have to contend with the fact that an actor might not deem me worthy of their trust, of their respect, of their surrender. Because a big part of creating a story is surrender. When I get onto a set, I already know that I have to work 10 times harder. In fact, let's take a step back. To have access to a set, to be able to be a director, one has to work 10 times harder than their counterpart, who is likely an older white man, who is already accepted as the norm, the leader, the one who is deserving of trust, the one who is deserving of respect, the one who is assumed to be talented, even in the situation that they are mediocre. And we have come across a lot of mediocre white male directors who are given opportunity after opportunity as though they are the most talented people on the set, when, well, there are a lot of talented Black female directors. Now, the experience is also the same for the Black female actor. There is always a negotiation and a struggle around being taken seriously as a performer. Before you are even able to put forward your talent, you are judged on your appearance and whether or not you are objectifiable, whether you can be used to provoke fantasy or lust or whatever other, objectifying elements of storytelling before your talent is even considered. You have to think about what you look like in a shot, in case you think you are in the middle of a dancing scene, whereas the camera is focused on your butt. And these are some of the experiences that I have shared with female actors who have come to me and said, we are so relieved to have a woman, specifically a Black woman, on set because we feel like somebody has our back. So the experience of people who are already privileged will be different in how people who are traditionally marginalized will negotiate this power dynamic between the actor and the director. Okay, now that we've touched on that, because I really think it's important to speak about that, because we cannot talk honestly about these relationships without, putting them in a particular context or ignoring certain things that influence how these relationships play out outside of, the creative aspects. Okay, so let's talk about the different types of directors. Now, there are many, but I'm just going to whittle it down to a few, just so that it's useful and we can keep the conversation sort of going. So there are camera directors. Now, these directors traditionally have some sort of technical background. Some of them used to be cinematographers, directors of photography, cameramen before they stepped into the director's seat for whatever reason. Now, some of these directors are really committed to the shot, the camera, the lens. They've got the lingo. And sometimes you may even see them blocking an actor so that the actor is actually maximizing the shot more than the shot is there to capture the actor. A lot of these directors are not actors, directors. And then you get the exacting director. This may be a director who has written the story sometimes. It may be a director who used to be an actor and is very specific about the style of performance that they enjoy working with, sometimes wanting to replicate themselves. They may be, a director who works quite specifically with storyboards because they have a very distinct and specific vision of what they want in the end. Sometimes these directors can be tyrants, and sometimes the fact that they're so structured and so specific and so ready kind of frees the process because everybody knows for sure that they are on the same page regarding making the same film. And then, of course, you get the collaborative director who feels that everybody on set is there for a reason, from cast to crew, and everybody's genius is welcome to come into the part and to make this whole thing even better. And then you get the actor's director. The actor's director's focus is primarily the performance of the actors, and they work very closely with actors, and they normally have the best relationship with actors. Now, we may assume that a certain type of director is going to yield a certain type of response from an actor, but some of the responses are surprising. Let's take a listen to one of these. So this is an interview of Jamie Foxx. Excuse me, I told you we were going to have these problems. But let's continue. So this is Jamie Foxx speaking about Quentin Tarantino when they were shooting Django, and it's an interview he did with Howard Stern. Okay.
I was just getting to learn Quentin Tarantino. So he was, again, a tyrant. He was this, do not fuck my film up.
Tyrant in the sense that does he insist on every word being just the way he wrote it?
But that's what you want.
Do you?
You want a director who, even if you're going off the cliff, you know that you're going off the fucking cliff.
Don't you want the freedom to also kind of add to it?
Not with him.
No.
The first day of rehearsal, I'm reading my lines like, and he said, cut. Can I talk to you for a second? Close the door. What the fuck is that? I said, what you mean? I knew I was going to have this problem. Listen, all of this shit, you have to be a fucking slave, okay? He's a slave. He's not cool. He's a fucking slave.
Right.
He doesn't know how to read. You come in with your fucking Louis bag and your fucking Range Rover and your fucking Jesser. I'm so fucking, you're not Jim Brown. He's a fucking slave. And then
okay, what happened there? Okay, I'm not sure what happened there, but the interview ends with Howard Stern asking Jamie Foxx if he would rather avoid working with Quentin Tarantino, and Jamie Foxx says he would work with him 1,000 times over, right? And the next clip is David Cronenberg, the director, talking about his relationship with Ralph Fiennes on the film Spider.
I leave them alone, the actors. That really is good. Get good actors and then let them be good. I'm serious. Ray Fiennes said that the directing he got on Spider was the least directing he ever got on any movie before you get on the set. You're talking to them about the script, about the character. You're working with them. What kind of hair does Spider have? Does he ever wash it? It's a mess. Does he ever shave? Can this guy who's so dysfunctional, is he actually capable of shaving? How ripped is the inside of his coat? Does it hanging? Does he sleep in his coat? Where does he sleep? All of this stuff you talk about. And by the time Ray came on the set, he had that character nailed. I didn't have to say anything to him. We just followed him, really. I mean, it's almost like a documentary at that point. You block the scene with him, yes, but then I feel like I'm shooting something that I've discovered. It's almost like found art.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there you have it. Two very different approaches, one from an actor's perspective and one from a director's perspective. And then we can talk a little bit about the different types of actors. Now, there's probably as many types of actors as there are actors, but we can loosely group them into the following categories. You get actors that are extremely independent. She doesn't want too much direction. She wants, space to find and develop the characters themselves. And as David Cronenberg said earlier on, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a period of sort of speaking about the characters so that you all are sure that you're on the same page. And once you get to set, of course, there will be blocking because there is a camera to work with. But generally, they want to be left alone to work. The idea is that you cast me in this role, you trusted me to execute this role, so give me the space to do that. And then you get actors who I call sensitive actors, and sensitive not in a weak way, but in terms of their sharp instincts, how deeply connected they are to the emotion, how deeply connected they are to the space that they're working in, how deeply connected they are to the director, and almost like empaths. And I find that actors who have those qualities tend to enjoy communication with that director a lot. They enjoy the attention. They thrive with direction because often it makes them feel challenged rather than disrespected. They just perceive it a different way. And they also trust that they have such a huge wealth of talent and craft to dig from that they kind of look forward to trying things in a way that they hadn't necessarily thought of. And then of course you get the collaborative actor who is a little bit of the two. They are happy, they're comfortable working on their own and finding their character and developing it on their own, but they also don't mind suggestions and direction and sort of workshopping a character with the director. None of these actors are better or worse than the other. They're just different and require different things in order to give their best work. One of the actors that I enjoyed deeply working with, who in a way she kind of touches on a bit of these different characters, but I would say my experience of her is that she is a very sensitive and intuitive type of actor, is Sibulele Gcilishana. I worked with her on a short film called Joko ya Hao, and one of the first things that really struck me that was quite remarkable about her, and just as a note, myself as a director, I really enjoy working with actors who surprise me in one way or another, whether it's through the performance or something else. And a pleasant surprise with Sibulele Gcilishana, not because I didn't expect it from her, but it's just not something I'm used to experiencing, was her depth in understanding script. And she was acting a script that I had written. Now, whenever we are engaged in a process of creation, already as a writer and a director, you are in some form of power struggle with yourself, right? There's what's happening consciously and there's a lot of what is happening subconsciously. And the more you sort of try to hide what's happening subconsciously, the more it actually shows up on the page. And Sibulele has a very sharp eye. She catches the subtext very quickly, and she can almost even tell you what you were saying that you were not aware that you were saying with the script. So already how she understands script makes her such a dynamic actor who is able to play. I like her so much and I admire her so much as a performer. I sent her a few questions to ask her, what does she look for and what does she hope for in a relationship between an actor and a director? And this is what she had to say.
For me, on set, the first thing is how we receive one another. So for me, if someone receives me warmly and already gives me the impression that they trust and know what I can do and I'm capable of, I think already it gives me, like confidence.
Okay.
It's always great that a director has done some homework in their act for me. I want to hear somebody owaziyo a little bit about the kind of stuff that I've done, and as an actor, closer setting, you like baby the director that affirmation every now and again that you're doing something right.
Yeah. And because I'm hoping to work with her again in future, now I know what she likes. Okay. Right. So now that we've spoken quite plainly about this relationship being one of power, it also involves quite a huge amount of vulnerability because of what is demanded from an actor, right? But even so, many of us have our different beliefs, of course, about what makes the director-actor relationship work, what it represents, and so on. And these are some of the beliefs about the actor-director relationship, and I'm going to go ahead and read these quotes. The first one is from Dr. Cyril Weiner, who compares the actor-director relationship to a patient-therapist relationship. He says, stage directors are involved in a process similar to psychotherapists. They empathize, stimulate emotional recall, deal with conflict, encourage risk-taking, build confidence, establish a supportive environment, and create a sense of family. The relationship between the actor and director, like that of a patient and therapist, relies on intense emotional involvement. Both demand sensitivity, reciprocity, and a deep understanding of human behavior. I think if you enjoy watching interviews, I'm one of those people who do, you would have heard actors speak a lot about how acting a particular role was cathartic. And I've also heard directors saying the same thing, going through a process, not just of the story itself, but this relationship between the actor and director where it begins in one place and ends in another, having gone through, highs and lows during the course of audition, production, and, post-production, that it can be quite a cathartic experience. It can be quite a healing process. And a lot of the times that will resonate onto the screen as well. Even those who are watching the film may experience the same, healing, conflict resolution experiences that were happening behind the scenes. And then Tom Guttridge, on the other hand, compares the actor-director relationship, to the military, the commander and the troops. He says, while there is no real comparison between the potential consequences for badly led troops and badly led actors, very few actors actually die on stage as a result of bad direction. There are interesting similarities between the two professions that merit examination in the context of leadership and performance in the broadcast sense. For example, it is acknowledged that actors, like soldiers, work under considerable stress. Now, this little piece over here reminds me of an interview that I saw of Werner Herzog talking about, a situation that he had while he was shooting Akira many years ago. And one of the actors has just absolutely had it at this point, but they were 10 days away from finishing the film. And the actor had decided, okay, that's it, I'm leaving this place. And they were about to get on a boat and leave. And this director says to them, if you go, I am going to shoot you. And these are like these situations demonstrate how intense it may get on set, sometimes bordering on or going all the way to, a place of toxicity or downright abuse to get actors to behave or act or give the performance that the director wants. So yeah, that little piece about, soldiers and, commanders kind of took me there for a moment. And then there are, the muses, where the actor and the director absolutely inspire each other, where each of their best work is with the other. They may go out and do some really nice stuff on the outside, but as soon as these two get together, magic, absolute magic just happens. And then, of course, we've already touched a little bit on this one, or a lot on this one, but there are also toxic relationships that occur on set. Now, neither of these types of relationships guarantee a brilliant product in the end, and neither promise a bad one either. Some of the best films were created under incredibly abusive and toxic conditions. And some of the best director-actor relationships have yielded mediocre work. The purpose of this video is not to talk about whether the ends justify the means or not. I know we each have our positions on that, but I just wanted to demonstrate that there are as many opportunities for success as there are different relationships. There isn't a particular relationship that leads to a specific sort of outcome. Now, there are sort of books, videos, essays, workshops, classes, and all of that that do teach how to improve the actor-director relationship. And of course, I think those are important. Of course, I support it. But that is a completely different conversation to what we are talking about today. It links to what we were saying earlier. The actor can render themselves undirectable. I saw this beautiful quote, and it says, "The leader only exists insofar as there is something to be led. By agreeing to be observed and led, the directed allow the director to have existence." What I like about this is that it speaks to the idea that just because you are at the top of a hierarchy or you have rank doesn't mean you naturally have good leadership qualities. Just because you were born into the royal family and you're a king does not mean you're just naturally going to be a good leader. And keeping this in mind reminds us that we always have to work, under fair conditions. This is under fair conditions, that we have to earn always our respect. Respect is not automatic. And the journey that an actor has to go through requires so much vulnerability and openness and surrender that really the conditions have to be right to get to that state, right? And equally, an actor having particular rank, maybe they are more experienced than the director is, doesn't mean that that actor cannot see value in being directed, right? So at times it is, in fact, who has the power at whatever particular time is always in motion. It's never static. Now, let's talk about a situation in which a director is experiencing resistance from an actor, and some of the reasons why this might be happening. It might be a trust issue, whether it is the fact that the actor does not believe in the director's ability, or that in fact the director has demonstrated that they don't know what they're doing, they're fumbling, they're unprepared, and so on. It could be because the actor has a particular prejudice against the director. Perhaps they feel like the director is too young to have the life experience to guide them through a particular storyline. It could be the actor's personal trauma. It could be a judgment they have about the character. Any one of these can lead to a situation where an actor sort of shuts down and does not allow the director to direct them, and they start directing themselves. They look after themselves. You know, they come prepared. They may nod and say yes, you know, for the sake of being polite. But from there on, they are watching their own performance to make sure that they do not humiliate themselves. Because at the end of the day, when the television switches on, it is the actor's face that we are going to see. People don't even read credits, really. There might be resentment on set. An actor might feel like they're working under terrible conditions, which the director may have power over, but they're not doing anything. So maybe when you do get on set together, in terms of creating now the story, you get along, but the actor then has to leave set to go to a green room that is cold, that lets the rain in, where there is no privacy, where there is no space for them to sort of prepare, you know, and get into the right state of mind of for playing their character. And the director is aware of these conditions and is not doing much to make sure that the actors are able to work in, you know, conducive environment for whatever reason there is. Then there is also the issue of payment. You know, sometimes, most of the time, payments come extremely late, and an actor might be feeling that they're not being valued. You know, they've come to set, they've prepared, they've worked hard, but there is nothing in the bank account. Or they do show up on set and they refuse to work until they've been paid. We've all had these experiences if we've been on set. And of course, feeling undervalued for whatever reason. This absolutely has, you know, bearing on how the actor and director will relate to each other, because sometimes the actor may feel like if they share the issues with the director may, you know, sort it out moving forward. But on the other hand, when the relationship is comfortable enough for both the actor and the director, whatever conditions create that comfort. As you heard Jamie Foxx earlier, he loved the fact that Quentin Tarantino was a tyrant. So I'm not prescribing any sort of at that particular time, and they both consented to it. There is an opportunity for a great vulnerability. And this is not one-sided. This vulnerability can also come from the director, who may have to admit that they can't absolutely know everything. They can't be the best at shots and the best at music and the best at speaking to every single director and know absolutely everything always about the story. Everybody has their limitations and everybody has their strengths. And once the environment is safe enough to allow those vulnerabilities to happen, a deeper connection can be made, which at times can lead then to much better storytelling. Whether it ends up as a great story or not is a different conversation, but certainly that vulnerability has an effect on how the director and the actor work with each other. And then of course there is what I call transcendence, which is both the actor and the director submitting themselves to an invisible energy that creates, what we call story, and absolutely the story itself, because ultimately that is what is bringing us together in the first place. And when we all submit to the story in the ways that we should submit to the story, interesting things begin to happen. In an ideal situation, actors and directors understand their respective roles, what each of them are supposed to bring to the set. At the end of the day, because we shoot films in such a disjointed way, it truly is the director who has a full grasp of where all of this is going. Even when the actor is performing, the director may already know how they're going to edit this particular scene. So they can objectively watch the overall project and look after the visual style and the dramatic elements. Only the actor can live within the world of their character. They are the ones who carry it. They are the ones who bring it to life. They are the ones who use their minds, their emotions, and their bodies to bring these characters to life. Even if you are those directors who give actors a line-by-line reading, at the end of the day, you cannot inhabit those characters. That is the actor's job. And the actor's job then is to tell those stories using what the actor has brought to life. The crux of this relationship is that the actor is the viewed and the director is the viewer. When the relationship of the viewer and the viewed is broken, a certain magic is lost. In surrendering to being directed, the actor frees themselves to discover magic. Even in a situation where an actor is directing themselves, when they step onto that stage or between action and cut, they have to then trust that the director in them has done a great job and drop that head and allow themselves to be free. And it is one of the most empowered feelings that a performer can feel. And as I'm going to the next slide, I'm talking here about the director in turn surrendering to the story and its magic. For some directors, the storytelling process truly is a religious experience. One of the directors that I really admire a lot, I think she's easily one of my favorite directors, is Palisa Shongwe. I worked with her many years ago on a short film called Unamalanga and the Witch. Have I run out of time? What's happening? Oh, there we go. Called Unamalanga and the Witch. And I really enjoyed her style of directing. I don't need to say much. She explains quite clearly.
To answer the first question, what I look for when I'm casting or what my casting process is, in my experience, I take casting to be as mysterious and as about resonance and connection as meeting someone and falling in love with that person. When I write and when I feel like I have a successful script, it's usually because I've spent a lot of time trying to connect with what I feel is the energy of a character. I feel like writing and creating a filmic story is an act of invocation. I really deeply believe that what happens, maybe not the way that we exist, but they do. And when that connection has happened and they've told me their story and I've done my best and put it on the page, the next part of the process, once we're producing, is to create an environment for them to be able to appear. As I fundamentally believe that film, the medium of film, is, I like to say, when I'm feeling clever, that it's not a representational medium in the sense that it takes something and replicates it, but rather a medium that represents, that instead of represent. It's very clever. But like, I like to think about it as a process of representing. That is, thinking or imagining that somewhere out there in the do, especially and specifically the casting is, and even the words and the writing and the sound that you create, the soundscape you create, the quiet that you create, is to make space for those spirits, those characters to come into the room. I've heard Mmabatho talk about it before when she speaks about the spirit of the story or the spirit of the film entering a room, and then everyone in that room can feel it. The actors can feel it, the cinematographer, the director, everyone knows that something has entered or something has been invoked. And so I really, really, truly believe that that's what that medium does at its best. And so when I look for, I don't even like to call them actors, but I call them sort of my partners in the process of invoking these spirits. What I'm looking for is someone who would be recognizable to that spirit as themselves, or would recognize themselves as that spirit. So I'm looking for someone who can understand that character on a spiritual level. And in my mind, I'm also thinking that that character somewhere in that realm of existence, the coming happens. That's for me the great mystery. And so I really, truly look for people who look and move like those characters already. Even if it's just a range of their gestures, I know that they have some of those gestures in them, or they have that history in their body somehow, so that my character can recognize that actor as themselves and then come through them. Yeah, basically that's what that's the notion I carry with me when I am, I have the opportunity to cast and to interact with actors. Of course, all of this very heady stuff is not important or effective if we're not also talking about talent and professionalism and training. And I was truly fundamentally blessed that in that short film I made, Anomalanga and the Witch, I was working with actors that not only resonated with the characters completely, and I think on some level understood that their work was not just representation, but that they were in the process of becoming and revealing something, and were willing to give themselves over to that revelation. Not only were they doing that, but they were also professionals and just amazing at language and at body language. And so that combination for me, which is that magic combination, that coincidence of different elements, is what I look for when I'm casting. And my process is very open. I'm very open to running into people that I think might work for the characters. But I'm also not opposed to the process of people walking in and reading. It's just all the time I'm thinking about this idea of resonance and invocation.
Okay. So I think, I hope I have successfully demonstrated that the actor-director relationship is, at the core, a relationship about negotiating power in the process of storytelling. We have looked at how toxic relationships and healthy relationships don't necessarily lead to a particular outcome. That said, I do think we have to advocate for a much more healthy root out sexual harassment. We have to root out racism. We have to root out any toxic, abusive actions that happen on set, because at the end of the day, the actor-director relationship does not end on set. These are human beings, and whatever scars are inflicted within the set environment don't suddenly end when you step off that set. People have lived with very, very deep emotional scars that were created on set. And just as we need to root out, stomp, reject, vehemently fight against abuse, violence, sexual harassment, racism, sexism, in society, these fights also have to happen on set. And we've also known of healthy, lifelong writer-director relationships. And there is nothing wrong, there is nothing unartistic in being or striving to be a healthy person. Art does not have to equal degenerate behavior. Honest, sober, hardworking people can be great artists. Because at the end of the day, artists don't live in a vacuum. They do live in the world. They are citizens of a particular country. They roam the streets. They live with all of us. And there is nothing wrong with being a healthy artist. Thank you so much for joining me on this masterclass. I do wish all of you to overcome any, unhealthy or uncomfortable situations that you may be in. I do wish you guys to stay safe and, spirits in a good place. Let's all hang in there so that we can get back into the world and create once more. Thank you. Now, how do I stop it? Let's see. Okay, bye-bye.